Hello and welcome to another video. So we're going to take a look at a deck I've been working on, anti-meta Haven. It's basically the cards you need to heavily counter Shadow mostly. So we're taking, Forbidden Rituals. We added the Judge Retribution after a change from the stream the other day on recommendation of another guy. I always forget names when I'm thinking of stuff. Pretty sure it was Fell. But other than that, you're pretty much just teching against that, looking at controlling the board as long as possible, kind of surviving, I guess, most part, until you can drop Aegis and Bahamut and Olivia sort of range, and then finish them off. Sometimes you get lucky and you're about to finish them off in the mid-game, provided they haven't played too much and you can get in the chip damage you need. So your main idea is to stall them out kind of thing. Obviously that's not perfect, but it seems to work really well for against Shadow at the moment. Dragon, that's the difficult matchup. It doesn't seem to matter what kind of card you run, it's really hard to counter Dragon effectively, outside of aggro decks, obviously. Aggro decks work really well against Dragon, but then they don't tend to work quite as well against Shadow. So, this deck is more positioned against Shadow decks at this point. Although it can win against Dragon, which I do have a match for that in a minute. So, we'll go over and we'll take a look at the matches. So I did have a little bit of a losing streak in the middle here. That's mainly because I just wasn't paying attention to what I was doing when I really should have been. And the couple of Dragon matchups are really uphill battles. If you want to verse Dragon, you're going to see in this replay here that it is a really major uphill battle to try and win. So while you can win, it's just more difficult. So, your main techs are for low-end cards. Against Dragon, you want things like Temple Defenders, maybe even Banishment, just to hit their early stuff, so they can't ramp as easily. The Unica was the only thing I could think for a 2-drop with 2 health. That is an amazing counter to Shadow. So, we're basically going to go through. We've got Temple Defenders to play, we've got our Banishment. We got a super early Grimnir. Your only chance against Dragon is to kind of hope that they don't have the best hand and try and hit them when you can. It's definitely the unfavored matchup, but they've already spent double Salamander just removing 2 followers, which for me is great value, for them not so much. But they did ramp pretty crazily. Fortunately, we have the Banishment to deal with this, and them using a Cyclone pretty early is really nice for us. Plus, we do get to set up the Beast Call here. So we're not just playing for an empty board, which is nice. The Forbidden Ritual in a Dragon matchup is pretty much dead. So that's why I played it out here. I didn't really want to play anything else. I didn't want to overcommit. And I felt that the Forbidden Ritual at least will sort of limit what they play in some regards. Dragon not so much, but you're not playing Forbidden Ritual to... You're not playing it reactively. You're playing it preemptively. So for example, going up against Catacomb, you nearly want to drop it before they have a chance to drop Catacomb, clearing off everything that Catacomb would usually proc with. And if they decide to play Catacomb anyway, they lose everything. So that sort of play is what you'll aim for, and I'm sure you'll see that in my... I don't know whether you see that in my Shadow game. I'm not sure. But that's how I use Forbidden Ritual. I try and play it preemptively. Limit the opponent from being able to play that turn, giving you practically a free turn to advance. So the Olivia is great little card. I mean... It means I don't need to worry about evolves, so I can focus on trading. While at the same time having enough evolves to end the game pretty much when I need to. So he does drop Grimnir, which is a pain in the ass because it literally wipes my board. Leaving me with Judge as an optimal play here. Getting that draw, banishing a card. Obviously I would be dead to a whole lot of stupid things. The Rehab is a pain in the ass. I can't remember. I just hit it, don't I? Pretty sure I dropped a Hermit, which is why I traded that, because there was no point, it wasn't going to make any difference. I think I contemplated playing the Forbidden, but the Bahamut here was just too much for them to handle. So that was the lucky play. I played the Radiance Angel, getting the drawing the Gravekeeper, which can evolve to 5, dealing with the Rahab, and then dealing 13 to face, which is more than enough damage to pretty much put me in a spot where I can win.
There's no one else I'd rather lose to.
And that ends up closing out that game quite nicely. Unfortunately, I didn't get to use my main win con, but that kind of combination really works well. Being able to drop Bahamut and keep it on board. So now, the other matchup, Shadow. And then we just have a fun one against Rune last, so... So, similar strategy, you're mainly cycling for anything early. So Forbidden Ritual is super good early. Beast Call's good. Sonya not so much. I was really mulliganing for the Blackened Scripture and I managed to pull it, which is awesome. Going from here, we're then able to hopefully play the Forbidden Ritual on curve, which is great. Pretty sure that's what I end up doing. I gotta remember some of these when I'm playing games. The Blackened Scripture works well. They don't get any shadows, meaning they don't get any points off it. Now, something that Forbidden Ritual works amazingly with, playing it against Shadow Reaper. I didn't end up playing it there because I was expecting a bigger board, so like Catacomb or something else. So I thought, why play it against 2/1/1s when they can't even proc them easily? So the next turn I get to set up the Forbidden Ritual. The only thing I didn't think about was the fact they could evolve, so that Lyra becomes a real pain in the ass. Because with its evolve, it's out of the range of Forbidden Ritual. Fortunately, I have enough things to deal with that. Although I did leave myself open to a fair bit of damage. But luckily we did have the heal, which was very important, being able to use that to our advantage, getting that extra health and being able to deal with the Lyra while setting up for the Beast Call and the draw to proc for the next turn. And fortunately by that point they only had one shadow because everything I'd done to them was banishment, limiting what they could do when it come to turn 6. So I do just Blackened Scripture the Cerberus so that I don't have to deal with it, and I preemptively set up the Forbidden Ritual in case they decided to go with, say, Zombie Party, or they decide to drop Death's Breath, or Hector. It's a great turn to drop it right before their turn 7, because anything they play after that will instantly be killed, which is great. The only thing that would have survived would have been Hector on his own, which would have been pointless because he didn't have enough shadows anyway, but that's the sort of point that I was going for. Here I decided if I dropped the Lion on its own and evolve it, I would have had lethal, but I then realized later that that wasn't the case anyway, even though it didn't matter because I ended up trading here. Plus, setting up the Lion meant they had to deal with it, so that was kind of a bonus. Then I decided that Priest was a good play, because Banishing limits their shadows again. I get to deal the 1, and then the only way that they can play out a combo from here for Death's Breath would have been to drop the Coco somehow, which they couldn't do because they had nothing on board at the time. So basically they didn't have an easy way to drop stuff. And from here, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I just played the Olivia because I basically had a free turn to play it, pull back on it, giving us a 6/6, killing the Hector, leaving them with 3 shadows at turn 9, which is pretty depressing for a Shadowcraft player. This is exactly what this deck was designed to do, and it performed extremely well. Obviously not every game will be like that, but the aim of the deck was to pull something like that off, and it did quite well against that. So the final game here is one against Rune. This is definitely a matchup that was okay. Like, I think it was D-Shift, and being D-Shift, I guess they don't have much in the early, where my deck can perform quite well. I do drop the Olivia quite often, because I don't want something so high cost in my early hand. The Sacred Plea was an amazing draw. you can't go wrong having that 1-drop when you have nothing else to play turn 1 anyway. And since it doesn't proc until turn 4, I believe? Yeah, turn 4. Right on the turn you want to evolve when going second is really nice. Can open up a lot of plays to you in the long run. So we get to drop the Black Inscription. I just wanted the Lugon pretty much. It was kind of a waste, honestly, but once they played Lu, I was kind of expecting them to be playing D-Shift, so I knew that anything early I can get off the board is less I have to deal with in the future. And these Temple Defenders are amazing. I mean, they can take so much damage. Here I decided to set up Forbidden Ritual because I didn't think it was going to see any play anyway, so I thought, why not just play it? You know, worst case, I'm going to hit a Magician, I'm going to hit, I don't know, I'm going to hit something is what I thought. But then they did decide to return and kill that, unfortunately. Obviously this is good though, they are spending a lot of removal. So when my bigger threats start to come down, like Sonya here, nice 4-5 ward, they pretty much just opened up that play for me. The best bit about this mage here, to remove the Sonya requires them to spend a fair bit. But instead they decide to return it, which for me wasn't so bad. Plus the more wards I have on board, the harder this will be to deal with overall. So we do get to see this deck play a more control-orientated game against D-Shift, which is good in my opinion. The next play I make, I believe, is, I think it's the Ancient Line. The Ancient Line Evolve clears off the Mage, so I don't have to worry about the Evolve on that and dealing with it. I also get to kill off the 5-5 and hit for half their health left, so that only leaves them with 6 on board. And for them to win from this point would have required a double D-Shift, which I'm pretty certain they didn't even have a chance at having. So they go for the same sort of play, this time with an extra guy. I only need 6 damage from here, and fortunately I draw Judge, which basically lets me just, you know, evolve into 5 and strike them. If I didn't draw into Judge, I would have had to have done it with Ancient Lion, but it would have ended up in the same situation. Me having 6 damage on board and going for lethal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I have a Patreon. If you guys haven't seen that, you should pretty go check it out. It'll always be in the description below. It'll always be one of the top links. So hopefully you guys can support the channel and get in there. And I'll see you guys next time. Catch ya.